This is The Black Print, where being black is always the topic of conversation. The Black Print is brought to you by Rhymes and Designs and Good Evil Art. Welcome to The Black Print. It's your host, MJ. Thank you for tuning in. Because this is our first show ever, I'm going to give you all a little introduction. The Black Print is my blueprint for Black people's progress. I decided to do this podcast because obviously there's a lot going on in the world right now. And truth be told, for us, there's always been a lot going on. So at times it can feel very overwhelming. You ask yourself, what can I do as an individual to make a difference? And for me, this is making a difference. Through this podcast, I hope to spark conversations, provide information, and maybe even new perspectives. And hopefully, this can help you all make a difference in your lives and in your communities. A little background information on myself. So originally, I'm from Lansing, Michigan. I come from a single parent home. Shout out to my mom. I have 2 sisters and 2 brothers. I graduated from Duke University in 2013 and UCLA School of Law in 2016. Now that we've gotten through all that, let's move on to the topic for today. So today we'll be talking about Black social mobility and the necessity of reaching back. So I was on Facebook about a week ago, because, Facebook is where I find lots of articles and pictures that give me pause or spark thoughts and ideas. And I saw a picture of a debutante ball, an old school picture, black and white, and there's 20-something couples, young black women and men, and they're holding hands in a long line, and you see the room is packed. You look behind them in the image, and there's all of these people there, of course, supporting them, cheering them on, celebrating this important moment with them. And at first, I think to myself, this is a beautiful and powerful image. But then I start to think. And what this image made me think about was I felt like the people in the image, the community that would create such an image, I felt like they had the right idea, but then on the other hand, they had the wrong idea. And this is because the debutante ball was a celebration of, Black affluence, whether that is from business, education, whatever, things that are valuable. But then I looked at how the people in the image were dressed, how their hair was styled. You look at the gowns and the suits and the long gloves and the straightened teased hair and the pearl earrings and the way they're standing so stiff and formal. And you ask yourself, what is this actually celebrating? And it was very Eurocentric. And that, to me, is where the wrong idea comes in. The celebration of Black excellence, Black progress, depending on how you define progress. In that time and in these times, that's representation of Black people who have moved out of a certain strata. But then again, what is that image celebrating? To me, that's celebrating assimilation. The closer you get to looking like this, looking like the ruling class in air quotes, the closer you are to achieving some people's idea of progress. And let's not even get into the conversation of how social mobility is an illusion for the vast majority of the population. And then it's like, what are you moving from, for one, and what are you moving towards? The thing about Black social mobility that often holds the Black community back is that often for Black people to achieve social mobility, they have to distance themselves from their Blackness. They have to look a certain way and talk a certain way. When Black people think that they have to be a different kind of Black person, a special kind of Black person, sometimes even less Black, to be able to operate in these different spaces. Now you have a nice car and you have a nice home and you can send your kids to nice schools. But why does that mean that, you have to straighten your hair or you have to wear these gowns that if someone, squinted their eyes, it would look like white people dipped in chocolate. But Black people are not white people dipped in chocolate. No matter how much this post-racial narrative and current depictions in the media make it seem like either, Black people are what Black people have always been represented as in this country, or just white people dipped in chocolate. You can just, no matter what the storyline is, just pop a Black person in there and they'll talk like this and they'll walk like this, but this is a Black person on the screen. They're not talking about Black issues or a Black perspective or anything. It's literally just what you physically see. So I feel like, again, with Black social mobility, a lot of times people try to move away from their Blackness, but then that also means that they're leaving their community behind. Some of the commentary that I hear from Black affluent communities is the same narratives that come from the media, that come from non-Black communities, that these Black people haven't made it out of the hood or the projects or the ghetto because they're lazy and they're ignorant. If they would just stop talking like this, if they would stop walking like this, if they would start dressing like this and wearing their hair like this, then they too could achieve this social mobility. And so when you start to look at your own people like that, what are the odds that you will go back into those communities? Or if you've never, been a part of those communities, is you'll go to those communities and you'll try to make a difference. The people in those communities maybe didn't have access to the opportunities and the resources that you did, or the people in your community did. I mean, every Black child is full of so much potential, so much beauty, and so much compassion. And what dictates the outcome of Black children is where they grew up, what they saw, what information they had access to. You know what I'm saying? Did they have enough money to go to these summer programs? Did they have this art school that would really bring out all of their talents? And of course, the answer is no. We know the answer is no. But I feel like even Black people can forget that. And so then it's like, well, if you weren't so lazy, you would be where I am. But then I feel like these Black affluent families, where they've been affluent for generation after generation after generation, their ancestors, somebody down the line had to overcome certain barriers to become the doctor, the lawyer, the engineer. They had to break down these walls, and there was probably someone there helping them, someone who reached out their hand and was like, sister, brother, I got your back. I see that you're trying to do this, and I support your dreams. I support your goals. Let me look out for you. So you see Black people moving, from this social strata to this social strata to this social strata, getting all of this money and this influence, but then people who look down on their own people, and all of a sudden this idea of social mobility also becomes this idea of keeping your people down. And you get in these spaces and you expect people who look like you, people who have gone through similar situations as you, to look out for you, to, have your back, to definitely not try to keep you back, to hold you down. But then a lot of people like you, they don't end up being supportive because it's like they're constantly fighting to be the special Black person, the different Black person, in order for them to maintain their position, their social position in life. Every Black person can't be, promoted to this different social strata. There can only be one, there can only be 10, there can only be this select population. So you see these people and they're gaining all this money and this influence, and they're talking about the things that they have and the things that they can do. And you hear people like celebrities, and they rep their cities so hard, they rep their neighborhoods so hard, but then it's like, what are you doing to help the people who are still there have anything close to the level of success that you have? Anything close to the level of comfort that you have? And then that's just talking about material things. What about personal growth? What about becoming the best person that you can be, having strong morals and values? I feel like that is lost in Black social mobility. While doctors and lawyers and engineers have been in some Black families for generations, there's so many Black families that don't even have someone who's graduated from college or from a professional program. Therefore, this legacy, these resources, these examples, this exposure, not every Black person has that. And how are they going to gain that when the people who look like them, when other Black people who are in these positions refuse to even see them as valuable or capable, or just want to keep that pot so small because there can only be one? We are all equipped for excellence. As a people, we're all equipped for excellence despite our circumstances. Social mobility is a tool. It should not be used as a weapon against your own people. Thinking that social mobility means leaving your people behind, because progress never means leaving your people behind. And then also you sit there and you watch these people climbing these ladders, and the higher they get up on the ladder, the more they take on these white supremacist notions, that patriarchy, sexism, this ideal of individualism, which, considering that we're communal beings, this causes a lot of damage. You see these people who are capable of buying and operating complexes that are not projects, where their people can move in and try to change their circumstances, because, I think that really tough situations can definitely produce gems, but then look at all of the other things that it's likely to produce or exasperate. Being morally bankrupt doesn't play into my idea of progress. You see these celebrities and, they brag about all of this that they have, but yet they're shouting out designers who have explicitly said that they don't make clothes for Black people, that they don't like Black people, and you're not even getting an endorsement check for them. Why are you doing that? And how come I never hear you shouting out any Black designers? How come you're not putting Black people on? Is it there can only be one? Is that mentality in play? When people talk about people living in poverty, people living in these tough, sometimes horrible situations, there's this, this idea of crabs in a barrel. And of course, you can't ignore the fact that crabs aren't meant to be in a barrel. But I feel like that crabs in a barrel mentality is more prevalent when you see people climbing up these social ladders, getting into these different, tax brackets and these different social strata. Why is it that you have all of these Black people who have millions of dollars, billions of dollars collectively, and our Black children still have to start from scratch when they're fighting for their dreams and goals? Why aren't you reaching back? Why aren't you helping them? No, instead you're shouting out designers and people who own these companies who've never even attempted to create any kind of relationship with the Black community, hasn't done anything for the Black community. You know what I'm saying? Even though Black people have $1 trillion spending power, why wouldn't companies try to capture a Black audience? Because they don't need to, because the celebrities will do it without an endorsement check, even when those people are racist and hateful and they use all kinds of cheap, inhumane labor and all of these things. You see people who get to these spaces, they get in these positions where they have the ability to begin to build an empire for their people, and all they're concerned with is their empire. Meanwhile, in other communities, they build one another up. They create, they open rec centers, they fund programs, they make sure that children have proper nutrition, they improve their education systems. They become active in politics and demand something from their country because we're paying taxes. So when I look at that picture of that debutante ball and I see this Eurocentric representation, all I can think to myself is this idea of Black social mobility, where progress means to get closer to whiteness, to act more like these people that you see in power, to support and uphold white supremacist institutions. That's when Black social mobility holds us as a community, as a people back. And that's why it is an absolute necessity to always reach back. How will we progress and grow? How will we really make an impact? And how can we make these demands? How can we change our circumstances when we are never pulling each other up? When most of these people got into the positions, the people who are capable of pulling other people up, most of them got into these positions because someone reached their hand out to them and said, "Here, take my hand." So that leaves me with, the question of how do we hold these people in our community that largely got into the positions that they're in by our support, us holding them up, us pushing them forward, us buying their albums or going to see their movies, buying their merchandise. How do we hold those people accountable and demand that instead of taking on this white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalistic notion of individualism, how do we demand that they look out for their community?
I grew with Bob Marley's poster upon my wall. Marley's vibe grew my dreads, Marley flowing through my pen, I grow my powers to the end. Tupac ain't never left my system, car still we see no changes, and I'm fed up of submissions, but I ain't tapping out. Or tap dancing for no slave owner, grave holder, my people in vogue to a Range Rover. You throw a punch, I throw a money made. Pressure makes diamonds, and I'm proof of what the struggle made. People died just so that I could become rich. My ancestors shedding tears over my success. Tell them Nazis they can blow their Donald Trumpets, cause you can buy votes but can't buy what I've accomplished. They call us underdogs cause we was ranked underdogs, and now we call our girls bitches just so they can run along. Man, I ain't perfect, I'm a person that's a son of God, and he without sin can throw stones to another song.
Oh God, oh yeah, this is my redemption song.
Second chance is like a first impression. As of yet I ain't needed one, I was first impressing. It cost to be a boss, I still pay girls attention. The type to wheel it just to swear the brethren. Now, picture me so lost, I'm trying to find a map. This is my redemption song, I wanna hear the choir rap. Sometimes they sell you dreams just to buy them back. Good kid, mad city, you can't pimp the butterflying man. It's AV, yeah, it's AV. Probably signed to Virgin before I find myself AV. Got my beats by Dre's on, listening to Dre beats. That's Compton in Tottenham, I'm walking the same streets. Our Father who art in heaven, give us this daily bread for me and my brethren. Had to rise, had to fall, just to have our tops down. So I barely speak in person, I do it on songs now, yeah.
Oh God, oh yeah, this is my redemption song. Oh Lord, oh God, oh yeah, this is my redemption song.
That was My Redemption Song by Knox Brown. So that was the Black Print. I hope you enjoyed our conversation for today. Please leave comments or suggestions in the comment section. Also, please respect our policy on commenting. Nothing hateful, nothing disrespectful. We want this to be a safe space. And if comments are not in line with our policy, they will be removed. Please tune in next time for a conversation on leadership, what leadership is and what leadership is not, and why certain notions about leadership are invalid and they serve to impede our progress as a people. This is MJ sending you peace, love, and ammunition.